The year is 1926. In the city of Philadelphia, 150 years ago, the Declaration of Independence was signed, marking the beginning of American independence. It was inconceivable that the year which marked the arrival at that milestone of American independence should not be signalized by some observance far greater in scope and magnitude than the customary 4th of July exercises. W. Freeland Kendrick, Exposition President and former Mayor of Philadelphia. Built to answer that call was the Sesqui-Centennial International Exposition, both a World's Fair and celebration of the United States in one event. Marking the entrance gateway was a massive 80-foot tall replica of the Liberty Bell constructed from 80 tons of steel. But the sheer size alone wasn't enough, as the bell hosted some 26,000 light bulbs for brilliant showing at night. Behind the lights and spectacle, though, were looming financial and attendance issues. Still, exhibitors remained out in full force. Companies could be seen with their own dedicated buildings for the exposition, such as Kodak, complete with a full store and development studio. Demonstrations of their Cine Kodak line of 16mm home movie equipment were also shown here, with the tagline, "Movies you make yourself." The footage you see throughout this video was filmed in much that same way, perhaps even on film purchased from that very store. Right next door was the Grand Pennsylvania State Building, where no expense was spared by the home state. Adorned with towering columns and larger-than-life relief sculptures on the walls, it was ensured to be an architectural standout of the show. Building it reportedly cost the state $500,000, or nearly $10 million in today's money. The height of the columns was 39 feet. Work was started on May 6, 1926, and completed June 10th. That was over a week after the opening day of the show, leading to inevitable disappointment of early visitors. But the state building alone wasn't enough for the City of Steel, as they had a grand monument-inspired building adorned with Bancroft's quote of Pittsburgh's namesake. "As long as the Monongahela and Allegheny shall flow to form the Ohio, as long as the English tongue shall be the language of freedom in the boundless valleys which their waters traverse, his name shall stand inscribed upon the gateway of the West." Illinois boasted a building with a 19-foot-tall statue of Lincoln centered in a 50-foot rotunda, with relics and mementos of Lincoln held inside. Ohio was present with a replica of the home of President William Henry Harrison, the first president to hail from the state. That building would later go on to be reconstructed at the Ohio State Fairgrounds, where it would stand until the 1980s. As the official account described it as, "The walls of all rooms were finished in paper of the period, that of the early 19th century. In many instances, furnishings from the original Harrison home were used." The Expo did offer more than industry showcases and historical lessons, though. Predating Disney's concept by decades, there was a small Treasure Island-themed area, simply described as a high-class recreation feature which daily draws its quota of visitors. It was complete with synthetic mountains, a riding railway that passes through them, and a personal paddleboat ride. Regarded by the official book, the decorated grounds formed an architectural and scenic fairyland where children and adults were delighted by the privilege of meeting beloved characters. Elsewhere on the grounds, as part of a Philadelphia modern recreational municipal center, was a playground for children, or as they described it, the outdoor apparatus for playgrounds. One thrillful attraction of note was the captive balloon ride, sponsored by local newspaper The Evening Bulletin, and adorned with their iconic slogan. For the $1 ticket, visitors could take to the skies for an aerial view of the exposition and neighboring stadium, a view of likes few would have experienced in the 1920s. Returning to the anniversary at the heart of the event, One of the major draws was a full replica of Colonial High Street, where Washington, Jefferson, and Franklin had all lived their lives. Opening on June 5th and planned by the Women's Committee, 20 buildings were constructed to create a faithful replica. One of those was notably Benjamin Franklin's print shop. The official book says, "One could almost visualize him standing at one of the old presses and with great labor first setting the type piece by piece and then making in 3 hours about 100 copies of his paper." While the exposition's main theme was a celebration of the United States, many foreign nations also took part. Their exhibits served as both diplomatic gestures and showcases of each nation's industries, culture, and products. Our authors of the booklet did not have much to say about the Czechoslovakian building, just that it houses the exhibit of the newly created republic. From a sign visible in the footage, we can at least see there was a tea room and a world-famous Prague ham. There were also light-on words for the description of the whole village constructed by Tunisia, stating that it was only presented in a bewildering array. The footage gives us a much better clue of what that experience actually was. Just a glimpse, we can see a snapshot of Tunisian architecture and culture in the early 20th century. To many visitors, this was the closest they could ever hope to get to a trip across the world. As we head over to the Palace of the U.S. Government, we can see the viewbook describes it as, "This immense structure houses the wonderful U.S. government exhibit, representative of the various government departments and hundreds of others, all highly interesting, entertaining, and instructive." Stepping inside that immense structure, we can see what was on display from those departments and industry exhibits. Here we can see the U.S. Treasury, the Geological Survey, and a small display from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, with a variety of handcrafted goods. On the industry side, we see a selection of aircraft, including the MS plane, which could be deployed from a surface Navy submarine. Further with industry, electricity was a big theme. Delco proudly advertised the Frigidaire unit, represented by the modern Iceman. Moreover, the Electrical Association of Philadelphia had their National Home Electric. Behind the stucco walls and Spanish tiled roof visible in the film, the interior was apparently fitted to the gills with electrical devices. There were electrical ranges, refrigerators, dishwashers, ironers, heaters, burglary switches, attachments for lawnmowers, and many other devices. Every form of electric illumination was employed. We had the Tower of Light at the center of the exposition, topped with one of the largest searchlights in the country. But despite its central place in the fair, the official book states that the decision of the exposition officials stopped the construction when half completed. Work had only started on June 6 after the exposition had already opened and was stopped a month later on July 8. Taking one last step back to the 18th century, we can see a replica of George Washington's boyhood home in England, Sulgrave Manor, built under the direction of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And speaking of the Revolution, the New York State Commission recreated George Washington's 1782 headquarters from Newburgh on the Hudson. As our visit comes to a close, we saw just a short glimpse of what the exposition had to offer. The back of the booklet gives some of the figures for the event. Approximately $26 million to produce, exhibits valued at $100 million and covering 2,000 acres. The ticket prices were 50 cents for adults and 25 cents for kids. With inflation, that would be about $10 and $5 each today, which seems pretty fair for what was offered. But still, the $26 million cost was too much to overcome, considering only 6.5 million admissions were recorded out of a projected 30 million minimum. Today, the exposition really isn't remembered for much other than being a failure. But looking through the booklet and home movie footage, it does show a little more of what an experience it still was. A huge showing of history, industry, and a celebration of our country as a whole, all built for a crowd that never came.